My name's Jason Cox. I'm from the Australian Energy Foundation. Before I start, I would like to say I am actually incredibly happy. Not because it's sunny outside, and being from Melbourne, I haven't seen the sun for quite a while. Not because I had a really nice coffee staring out at the Opera House this morning, but because I worked on probably 4 or 5 of these LEAP projects, and when we finished them, we knew they were incredible and there were great learnings coming from them, but we actually also thought those reports would go on a shelf and we'd never see them again. So seeing this makes me incredibly happy, not because that information is being used, but because you also got it. You understood exactly how it worked and what came out of those, and that's really great for someone like me who worked on them, that all that effort wasn't wasted. Thank you very much for that. It's really good for me. Now, less about me, more about what we're doing. So we were asked to base the scope of voluntary guideline for dealing with energy retailers and so forth, which sounded pretty simple, but was probably more complicated when you delve right into it. But we put together 4 really simple principles behind it. First principle being everything we do should be focused on improving the lives of the people in our community. I don't think that's a stretch. I think if we can't all agree on that principle, then we've got some serious problems. The recommended should provide a benefit to all stakeholders. It would have been really easy to go in there and go, you need to do everything for the consumer at your own cost. But that's not going to be accepted by anyone. That makes no sense realistically. What we had to do was for everyone who was involved, they got a good outcome from it. And as you all know, in any negotiation process, if everybody wins, it's a much easier deal to sell. The recommendation to work with an existing framework. The first thing we did when we went out to speak to retailers, the first thing they said to us was, we're not signing anything new, we're not doing anything different. And we went, okay. And they said, can we just use the energy charter? And we went, yeah, okay, sounds good to us. And we spoke to the people in the energy charter who also said, that works for us as well, which was a really good one because if everyone's agreeing straight away, you're laughing. And the idea that the recommendations should be simple and easy to implement. None of this should be rocket science. Most of this should just be really basic, simple understanding of how we do things, easy to implement, no one has to go crazy about it. So, areas of focus. The first thing we spoke about was the consumer relationship. Now, I was actually really surprised when we first started speaking to retailers in particular about how little they knew about their customer, which surprised me because I know that everything I sign up for in general online, they need to know where I was born and what my dog's name was and all manner of stuff. And they've got all the data, but when we went to talk to retailers, energy retailers, who are a very big part of your spend, they did ask some of those questions, but they didn't use a lot of them. They did tell me that they can tell you what you had for breakfast because they know if you put on the toaster and the kettle, but they can't tell me if you're an 87-year-old man or a 14-year-old girl. So that was one of the things which we're really surprised by. So one of the recommendations that was coming out of this was people need to know, or retailers need to know more about their customer. The reason being, they cannot provide a decent tailored service to you unless they know a little bit about you. Going back to the LEAP program, one of the things we found from the Bright Actions program, which was really interesting, was in the newly arrived community, the person who normally signed up for the bill was the 18-year-old son who spoke the best English. The 75-year-old grandmother did not. If she would have been on the bill, they would have got a number of concessions and so forth, which would have made their life a lot easier. So that's an important one to know. The other one is, if we just capture something as simple as how old are you, which we haven't got at the moment, you can actually see if that person is getting something like a pension or discount, which they're entitled to. I did a bit of work the other day. Lovely old Greek chap, Dimitri, 89 years old. I was looking at his bills. No pension or discount. I'm like, why not? Because he actually didn't know he's supposed to be getting one. We got it sorted out. Okay, he's on a Motsri, probably going to get saved about $1,000 this year, so everyone's happy. But if the retailer would have known how old he was, it's pretty easy for a retailer to put a flag on the system going, how old's this chap? Is he getting a discount? No. Call him up and find out why. From their point of view, it's a little bit of work, but from their point of view, He is their best friend for life. If as a retailer you ring up and say, I don't reckon you're getting what you're entitled to, how about we do this and you get $1,000, that's the greatest customer retention program of all time. And it's very easy to do with a little bit of knowledge. The other one is people don't understand what language people speak, which is really problematic. Excuse the racial stereotyping, but if someone rings up Muhammad at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and speaks English to him, he doesn't speak English, you've wasted a phone call. You've wasted everyone's time. If, when he signs up for it, he says, I would actually prefer someone who speaks Arabic can call me, straight away, he's happier, they're happier, and he stays with that company all the time because they ring up and speak Arabic to him as opposed to the other people who ring up and he doesn't understand a word they say. So a little bit of understanding about the customer goes a long way. The other thing is information provision. One of the first things everyone said to us was, we want easier to understand bills. And yep, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Good, we should be able to do that quite easily. When we went to the retailers, they said, yeah, we'd love to do that as well. But on this one A4 sheet, we have to provide, by regulation, 50 bits of information. And if you think about that, putting 50 bits of information on any sheet is hard to do effectively. So one of the companies is actually trialling a thing where you get like 7 really important bits of information on a digital bill and a link to all the other stuff they have to do, which kind of makes sense. And that's one of the things we want to do. And we did speak to a few people about that, and everyone went, that's crazy. People need easier bills, but no one actually wanted to take anything off the bill, which makes it a little bit harder. So what we're thinking there is like a nice little co-design process involving a lot of consumers to work out what really matters to them on the front, and on the back you have all the stuff that no one looks at, apart from geeks like me, because we love that stuff. The other one was information provision about language as well. We went through and had a look at a lot of the stuff that's available, and there's lots of really good stuff available if you speak English and you're pretty well educated. If you're not, it's a bit problematic. On the bright side, we've just done a great bit of work for ECA recently about getting that stuff put into different languages, getting really easy to understand stuff, putting it in one easy to find place, and distributing it to people who don't have the internet. So we're going to be working on that lately. We'll send out links, you'll love it. The other thing we're talking about is silent hardship, which is a real problem. And we've spoken about it here a lot, of people who aren't using energy. There's a terrible, terrible graph which we put into the report, which shows energy use, energy use, energy use, huge spike, energy use, energy. And what it was that was the day someone came round to visit. The rest of the time, they didn't turn the heater on. And the sad thing was the temperature graph was with that, and they were pretty much freezing all the time, which really is not the way we should be living in this country. So we're looking at how can we identify silent hardship, which is really important, but also about the terminology, which is even more important, because there are a vast cohort of people who would not register for an energy hardship program because they are old school tough and they don't do that stuff, which is really annoying. My favourite thing that I saw here was there is a company, I'm not going to mention names and so forth because I don't want to do that. There is a company who does not have a hardship program. They have a customer retention program because they know if they help people out of hardship, they are friends for life. And so just that terminology of being part of the customer retention program as opposed to the hardship program makes a huge difference to people. And why wouldn't it? Because you actually don't feel so bad about yourself. I can understand that. The other stuff is energy management. And this is, like, we can talk about bills, we can talk about that sort of stuff, it's great. But you can also, as we've spoken about many times, how much energy you use when you use it. One of the things that is hard about this is actually where do you find that information? From a trusted source. So I can tell you that a lot of the people we deal with, particularly consumers, had an attitude of, well, why would they actually give you that information? Because they'll be losing money on it. And we're trying to try and tell them the 50 or 60 bucks you save is not that much to this monstrous company. They just want to keep you as a customer. That's the biggest thing they want. So providing this information in really simple to understand ways, and preferably in different languages, is really important, and how you get it out there. And one of the issues we found there was, we used the term HITS, high income, technically savvy. I made a bit of a mistake with that one at the first when it was SMART, high income, technically savvy. And that acronym just does not go. And I didn't even realise it until we actually wrote it down. It's embarrassing. But if you're high income tech savvy, you can go on the internet and find anything. It's great. But there are people on the wrong side of the digital divide who can't do that. So what we have to do is, okay, how can we work with them? Can we put things in bills? If we know you speak Arabic, can we put it in Arabic and send it to your house? Really simple things. Will this cost the retailer a little bit? Sure. Will they have better customer retention? Absolutely. And that's a really big thing. The other thing is about working together. So there's two really important things here. You may not believe this, but energy retailers are not highly trusted. No, it's a fact. I think it's gone down from 50% trust to 39% trust factor in the community in recent times, which rates with, I think, politicians and used car salesmen, which is not great. But it doesn't need to be like that at all. But one of the great ways to improve trust, as we've spoken about, is by using the trusted intermediary, using someone you care for. One of the things we talk about is a lot of the pensioner associations, particularly ethnic pensioner associations, where if you walk in and the president introduces you, you are immediately part of the family. You stay for dinner and we trust you straight away. So what you say actually makes sense to us. We believe you. And that's a really important thing we can do. The other bit about working together, you remember at the very start of the thing I said about we need to find out more about customers? When we actually broached that, we said to customers, retailers need to know more about you. And they went, why? Why do they need to know more about us? Yep. And we explained. To the advocacy groups and so forth, we went, retailers need to know more about their customer. What are they going to do with that information? We need to know. And it was like, okay. And then we went to the retailers, they said, we won't be allowed to collect that information. And I was like, okay, this is not the best of relationships. And so what we talk about when we talk about working together is we actually have to understand that we're all working towards the same goal. Maybe sometimes for different purposes, but the same goal, which is really important to understand. And if we work towards it together, it will come out better. And what we're talking about is if customers, retailers and advocates go to a regulator and say, we think this is a good idea, not only will the regulator go, what? They'll also be more likely to be passing it very simply. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks very much.